Good morning, one and all. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I apologise for having just said hello to Andy Darville. I pressed the wrong button. I was trying Alex Latham's button, pressed the wrong A. So as far as I know, Alex most certainly is here. I'm not sure if Andy Darville is. Haven't seen him for a while, but I hope he's fit and well. Going to say good morning to Mark Whiting, who has just joined us. Alex Latham, who I've just given the roll call to. Gary Muirhead is here as well. Jim Turner is here as well. Lots of people tuning in over on Instagram, which is always good to see. Today's show is going to be a little bit different in that there is no after-show monologue today. Partly because I was just so knackered yesterday, I didn't get around to doing it. But I've also been working on something else, which I will tell you about in the fullness of time. Chris Ford has just joined us. Good morning, Chris. Thank you very much indeed for being here. So, as I say, we've got a couple of things to tell you about. New book. Listen, the audio version of it is half an hour listen, so it's well worth it. But I'll be telling you more about that. We've also trialing out a new podcast format as well, which I spent hours on yesterday, and I'll be telling you more about that in the fullness of time as well. So with all that being said, shall we crack on? I think we probably should, because we've got the usual mix of mystery machines and questions of the day to get through, plus a whole heap of diggers. So I'm going to roll the intro in just a moment, post the question of the day, which comes from Gary Muirhead, and I'm going to get this show on the road. Yeah, I feel like we can actually start our mystery machine today now. Well, in just a moment, because Dan Cullen, the reigning champion, has just joined us. Morning, Dan. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Where has he gone? Sure, I saw him. There we are. He says, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you indeed. So, yes, it is. Blimey, it's Friday already. Friday, the 4th of October. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, the small matter of the world's biggest wheel loader taking centre stage at Minexpo. We're sticking with the huge machines as we visit a giant caterpillar shovel over in Canada. Elite Earthworks tackles Takayuchi, and we're going back to Basque. See what I did there? With the mighty Kaboko. Plus, in the absence of a morning monologue, I'm going to be bringing you up to speed with how you can secure yourself a copy of our new Halloween horror story. And as if that weren't enough, we're going to tell you about a new and additional podcast format that we're currently trialing. Good to see Ken Hatter has just joined us. Good morning, Ken. Peter McKenna. Is Peter in hospital at the moment? Hope not, but get well soon. Either way, Peter. Dan Cullen says, starting the block paving today, and job coming close now, he says. And Peter McKenna, question of the day, which we'll come back to. Well, I do need to tell you about that, don't I? But I'll tell you about that after our mystery machine, which comes immediately after this. Yeah, we are only three rounds so far into this month's Mystery Machine League table. And I can tell you it's all even Stevens with Dan Cullen, Alex Latham and myself, all on 3 points. Nobody else has any points, but it's early in the month. So it's time to reveal today's Mystery Machine, which looks a bit like this. Could be some plumbing, couldn't it? I can assure you it isn't some plumbing, but I need your guesses. Obviously, we are looking, as always, for a make and a model. That's what we're looking for. And I can tell you that Steve Williamson has just arrived. Morning all. Just want to say, love it. Thank you. I know what he's talking about. I know exactly what he's talking about, but good. I'm glad it arrived safely. Ask Steve. Ask Steve. He'll tell you all about it. So, yes, our question of the day, which I was going to review in just a moment. We will come back to the Mystery Machine in just a moment. Question of the day. Let me do this quickly. Yeah, this morning's question of the day comes once again from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead. And his question is as timely as it is good, given that it's Friday. And Gary asks, what is your perfect weekend? I gave this some thought overnight, and I've drawn up a list of mine. So here is my perfect weekend. My weekend begins on a Friday night with a curry at the Taste of Bengal, just down the road from me. Saturday begins with coffee with Mrs. Demolition News at Oldenstein over in Kingston, followed by a large portion of pie and mash on my way to see the mighty West Ham win at home. Sunday begins with a large tomato juice, lots of Worcester sauce, a few hours of fishing, and then a sit-down dinner with all of my kids and my wife, obviously. As you can see, there's lots of food and drink involved in that, which at least partly explains my diabetes. However, here's the thing. Before I went to Las Vegas, I'd shifted 15 pounds from my once portly frame. Went to Vegas, ate like a king, threw the diabetes completely out the window, came back, haven't gained an ounce. That being said, as my Apple Watch told me, I was clocking somewhere around about 17,000, 18,000 steps per day while I was at Conexpo, or Minexpo, should I say. So, that's how you keep the weight off. You do lots of steps and you go to Las Vegas. That's the way to do it. But all of that aside, going back to Gary's question, his question was quite simply, what is your perfect weekend? Let's have a look. Ken Hatcher says, pizza and cleaning his car. Seems fair enough. Steve Williamson says, perfect weekend when I'm not working. Peter McKenna saying, doing sod all. Ah, yes. Yes, doing sod all. There is an art to that. And it's tempting to think that doing nothing involves actually doing things, watching the TV or, catching up on emails. No, when I want to do nothing, I want to do actually nothing. I just want to lay on the sofa, stare at the ceiling, nothing at all. So there you are. Maybe the Mystery Machine is a Mark's golf club. Good grief. No, it really isn't. Nobody would want to be looking at that, battered and bruised though it is. Gary Muirhead, who actually came up with the question, spending lots of quality time with the family, especially now I'm working away, staying away in digs with this new job. Yeah, I don't envy you that one bit. But it is the weekend. Get back to wife and children. Have a fantastic weekend. But not just Gary, obviously, everybody have a fantastic weekend. Don't go yet because there's still stuff to go through. So yes, Mystery Machine looks like that. I'll show you a smidge more. There you are. Looking for makes and models. Chris Ford has gone for a Cat D6D. It is not. Dan Cullen reckons it could be a Lugong Dozer. It's not one of those either. Dan has gone for the JCB 145X. It is none of those things. I'm not entirely sure how this works from a physical standpoint. Let me take that away. What is your perfect weekend? Dan Cullen says, question of the day, playing tiddlywinks with tits? All I can say is they must play with a different set of tiddlywinks rules where Dan comes from. But fine. Chris Ford says, winning the Euro Millions, a nice fillet steak, a nice drink, if whatever I fancy, and even maybe burying the pork bayonet. I should never have asked, should I? Gary, this is on you. And here we were thinking you were telling us to piss off and then you could do sod all. No. I've got plenty to do today. Peter McKenna says, lol, Dan is Irish, Mark. Yes, they do tiddlywinks differently in Ireland, apparently. Right, okay, well, while I've set that up, I'm going to do one more. Jim Turner says, machinery auction Saturday daytime, lottery win Saturday evening, and Sunday morning, bedroom Olympics with Rosalind Pike and Anna Church for a few hours. Then a big fry-up and more Olympics. Jim, I admire your stamina, my friend. Rosamund Pike. Well said. Yes, nothing like a bit of posh totty, I always say. I don't know. I never say that, but you get the idea. Right, we're going big in just a moment. I'll be back after this. It's not every day you get to stand face to face with the biggest wheel loader in the entire world, but I had that privilege just a day or two ago. Now, I'm trying to find this video on my screen here because I know it's here somewhere. Yes, this is, well, quite simply, the biggest wheel loader in the world at Minexpo from Komatsu. Okay, I've keyed it up enough. Here it goes. If you were paying attention at the end, you might have seen a guy with his arms outstretched. That's Fred. That's Fred on camera. Let's have a look. Gary Muirhead says, wow, that's a beast. I think he's talking about the machine rather than Fred, but yeah. How much ton does that bucket take? I don't know. I've probably got some specs here somewhere. I'll see if I can dig them out. Is that Fred on cam? Yes, it is. It is. Let's have a look. Mike Wolf has just joined us. Mr. Wolf, good morning. Says it's just 4 tons or so heavier than the Latorno. The L2350, but both have the same size of bucket. 53 cubic yards. 53 cubic yards. Yeah, we actually filmed it. It wasn't that machine. There was a Caterpillar machine just around the corner at Minexpo, and we were filming while they were, people were posing. They actually managed to get more than 20 people in the bucket at one point. Absolutely enormous. Let's say good morning to Tristan Mays, who's just joined us over on Instagram. Says, good morning, Mark. Hope you're well. Fred making a rare appearance. Yes, Fred making a very rare appearance. Glad to see it. Glad to see it. I'm very keen on people taking a bit of the limelight. Footy's back. Good morning, Footy. Good morning. How are you all? Finished my job here today. On to another job Tuesday. Another 2 weeks. Just want to know how everyone was doing. Well, we're all doing fit and well, I would say, is the answer to that. Good to have you back, Footy. Great to have Mike Wolf and Tristan Mays in our midst as well. Mystery Machine. I just need to tidy my screen up just a bit. That's the Mystery Machine as it stands at the moment. Gary Muirhead reckons it could be no, that's the wrong one. He reckons it could be a Mechalak 12 MXT. It is definitely not one of those. Going back to the Komatsu machine, Peter McKenna says, yeah, just a tad bigger than the 988 GC that I used to drive in the quarry. It's a bloody beautiful thing. One of the things that struck me about Minexpo, obviously, you're immediately struck by the size of, that 2350, the T264 from Liebherr. The scale of them is mind-boggling. But then you start to think about the actual engineering that goes into that. The amount of steel and technology required to make a thing like that actually move and then move material as well. Absolutely astonishing stuff. I'm not even going to do that justice. What have you been slipping in Fred's coffee? He'll be in the hot seat next. I honestly don't know. I mean, he does quite a bit of filming, and we do have lots of footage of Fred actually on screen, but we've never actually published it. He's not keen on being in front of the camera, but this time he decided, yeah, I'm going to put in an appearance, and good to see. Footy says, I've got somewhere to live now. I'm living in a place near Dartmoor for 6 months. Managed to get a place. Fantastic. Congratulations, my friend. And Mine Engineer, what a time to join. Mine Engineer just joined us over on Instagram. All good stuff, but we still don't know what the Mystery Machine is. So I'm going to show you a bit more of that. There you are. Looking for a make and model, and I can tell you, not a current model. Not a current model. Now, while you're mulling that over, I do need to bring you up to speed on the first two things. I'm just going to tell you, Gary has just guessed that might be a 950E from Caterpillar. It's not. So let me take that away. Mick has just joined us as well. Morning all. Nice day out there. I wouldn't know, because I'm sat here doing this. I'll come back to all of that in just a moment. Dan, I'll get to this in a minute. Komatsu D155A, it is not one of those. I'm taking that away, and I'll come back to the Mystery Machine in a moment. We were speaking of Minexpo, or I'm showing you Minexpo just a moment ago, and we have a new audio podcast to caress your ears whilst keeping you up to speed with the latest developments from Minexpo in the field of future fuels. Now, I've got a button to press here. That's the one. Yeah, we have a Minexpo podcast. Now, this podcast is important for two key reasons. First of all, obviously, this episode will give you an insight into how the likes of Liebherr, Caterpillar, and Komatsu are tackling the very real challenge of net zero. Worth a listen for that bit alone. However, equally importantly, this show is the first of a new format that I'm trying out. According to our analytics, which unfortunately I have to view on a fairly regular basis, most of our podcast listeners are tuning in during the working day. So in all likelihood, they're doing something else while they're listening. Driving a machine, driving a car, traveling on a train, traveling by plane, walking the dog, doing the ironing, whatever it might be. So with that in mind, we're trying out a new format, a more chatty conversational show that brings you the news, but doesn't really require too much concentration. It's one of those things that I think would be quite nice playing in the background. Not only that, that's a benefit in itself, but the biggest benefit is perhaps the fact that I don't appear in the show at all. So you don't have to listen to me droning on. Instead, we've handed the reins and responsibility to two bright young things that actually know what they're doing when it comes to podcasting. So assuming it proves popular, we're going to be adding new shows in this format very soon. We're actually going to be using it to keep you up to speed with developments in the field of demolition and construction equipment. We are going to do a semi-video version, but it is primarily going to be an audio format. Now, the first episode, you've got a link to it there. You can go and have a look at that and listen if you wish on YouTube. But if you're a Spotify user, you can also find it there. Just go to Spotify and search for Demolition News Radio, and you will find it. It's the latest episode. And I can tell you we've got another one waiting in the wings, which I'll be uploading probably over the weekend. So that's that bit out of the way. So let me get back to the Mystery Machine, because we have had more guesses here. What have we got? Jim Turner reckons it could be a Cat D8K. It's not. Chris Ford, Komatsu D155. It is not one of those either. Dan Cullen going for the Acco Super Dozer. It is not. Now, I'll come back to this in just a second. Gary Muirhead has gone for the JCB 1750. It is not. But he's also gone for the Hanomag 44C. It's not. However, you've got the right make. And Steve Williamson has also got the right make. But what I need is a model. So let me show you a bit more. And a bit more. There you are. That is the machine. We are looking for a Hanomag machine. I'll leave you to decide what Hanomag machine it is. But don't forget that link. Minexpo podcast went live this morning. It's about 20 minutes long. If you've got nothing better to do, if you've got a long car journey ahead of you, then please go give it a listen. Chris Ford is going for the Hanomag 400. Tis not. Tis not. Keep the guesses coming. We'll be right back in a moment. We're sticking with big machines, actually. So if my engineer is still watching over on Instagram, he might well enjoy this. Be back in just a moment before we head for that Canada.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, that Canada. The big four at Minexpo: Liebherr, Komatsu, Hitachi, and of course, Caterpillar. Caterpillar were there in force. Big trucks, big wheel loaders. This one's even bigger still. I can tell you we've had a comment here from Instagram. The Slothman 666 says the R45 455 ATK. It is not. I'll show you exactly what it is you're dealing with. Have we had some more? The Hanomag B16, it is not. The Hanomag 680E, it is not. The Hanomag D680E, it is not one of those. It's also not a Hanomag 55D, and it's not the D680E, and it's not the Hanomag D700, although it is. Dan Cullen has got the right answer. I was actually misreading that. It is indeed the Hanomag D700. It's a D700D, but let's not split hairs. There you are. Let me write Dan's name down. Dan just went into the lead yet again with... Well, there you are. He actually came back while I was speaking with exactly the right answer. It is a Hanomag D700D. Well done, Dan. 6 points to you so far this month. 3 to me, 3 to Alex Latham, 0 from everybody else. Steve Williamson, a belated guest, D540E from Hanomag. Close, but no cigar, Steve. But thank you for taking part. So, yes, I promise you... big Caterpillar machines. Big Caterpillar machines you shall jolly well have.
The 6060 we have on site, it's the first one in the world that's fully electric. And we're really lucky to have this commission on site. Shovel 201 we call it here. Since it's been put in production, we have little to no downtime on it.
The twin engine concept we already have with diesel drive. Now we also have this for electric drive.
Having a twin motor setup versus a twin engine setup, it has saved significant downtime. So the base machine on the new 6060 is similar to the previous generation. The modules for power, such as engines or motors, can be swapped out. If you chose to upgrade from a diesel to electric down the road, that is an achievable possibility. There's a less carbon footprint, which is pretty important these days as well.
We are getting here in this application around 95% bucket fill, so we can load a 793 in 4 passes. If we talk about yearly production, 6060 can dig up to 21 million ton per year. That's a perfect match for this customer.
When you're doing your pre-op inspection, the electric shovels is so much quicker because you're not looking at your engine oil leaks, transmission oil leaks. It's not dirty. Everything's very clean. And if there's an issue, you will spot it right away.
Uptime is the most important for the customer. So with the next gen 6060 electric, this was our focus. If you look at electric drive, you don't have to change oil filter, no air filter, no engine rebuild. So the uptime with electric drive is way higher versus diesel drive. With the next gen machine, we implemented cat hoses, and we also redesigned the hose routing. These hoses can run 1 million impulse, versus industry hoses, they only can last 500,000 impulse. So this was a huge improvement. The next gen machines, every machine is now complete converted into the Caterpillar part system. So this makes it way easier for dealer and customer to support this machine.
This new 6060 is way more comfortable than the old model. The cab is luxurious, so I can spend more time in it with less fatigue.
When we look at how it's performing out there now, and getting the operators in there who've worked on the diesel engine ones, their attitudes towards it's awesome to see. They get excited about being in there. It's quieter, it's smoother, and they're just, they're really enjoying it.
At the end of a 12-hour shift, it makes a difference. If you got to train somebody, now you got a nice seat in the back, you got a second seat on the side.
And the focus was to reduce operator fatigue. Every decibel we reduce, so we went from 74 decibel to 68 decibel. And this is super quiet. Operator assist, enhanced motion control, it makes it way easier for the operator to control the attachment, to get a good bucket fill, swing to the truck, dump.
MineStar makes it a lot easier now. I can actually see exactly where my bucket is, like the exact height of my bucket, which I had never had before, and it's almost a no-brainer. Now, knowing where your bucket is, it's just right away, you're hitting grade perfectly. Also, for knowing which materials you're in, it automatically sets your material, whether you're in waste or ore. It's definitely more precise than other systems.
I'm a fan of electric shovel. I think they're pretty reliable, and as the pit gets bigger, I think they'll get even more and more efficient for us, and a lower cost as well.
Everything in that machine is a step up from before.
Quite a beast, right? Very, very quickly, I had a message from Garvin at Mostly Diggers this morning. Apparently, we are both going to JCB in about 2 weeks' time, but our paths, unfortunately, will not cross. I'm going to be there on the Tuesday and the Wednesday, and Garvin is going to be there on the Thursday. I may leave you an Easter egg lying about the place, Garvin, but our paths aren't going to cross. But thank you for your message this morning. Speaking of messages this morning, well, it was a message last night. Mick Norton has just joined us. Mick, you sent me a message last night, and thank you very much indeed for that. I couldn't actually open it. And then I turned on my computer this morning, and it opened perfectly. I've no idea what was going on. But thank you very much indeed for the update. Going back to the jockey seat on the big Caterpillar there. Take your wife to work day with the extra seat. The things you could get up to in that cab. Young love, eh? If I took my wife to work in that, I'd be nagged for about 12 hours. Love the driver's comment of knowing where your bucket is. It's kind of important, isn't it? Well said, Steve. What is wrong with you people this morning? I thought that. Well said, Steve. I thought that too. Fully reclining seat. Is there something in the water? Is it Is this something that happens in October? Behave yourselves. She'd be telling you you're doing it wrong. It's kind of her job, to be perfectly honest with you. Even like last night, there I was, sat there messing about with the new podcast format. What are you doing? Why are you doing it like that? Never done one. Never done one in her life. Mostly Diggers. Galvin says, Frisky Friday. It does feel like that. I don't know what the hell's wrong with people. Has it been a long week, people? Or is it because, well, I mean, the sun's out here. I don't know what it's doing where you are. But behave yourselves. Keep your strides on, would you, people? I'll be right back after this. There's some brave souls watching this show, I tell you. Chris Field says, take the wife to work, backseat driver, make a 12-hour shift, last a lifetime. Good luck with Mrs. Ford this evening, Chris. Good luck. I'm sure she's a listener. Listen, everybody listens into this show. If only that were the case. Yes, we've had some very, very big machines. It's time to bring a bit of balance to things. Not all machines have to be big. Some of them are small and perfectly formed.
I'm Brandon Johnson, owner of Elite Earthworks in Joplin, Missouri, and I'm proud to be a Takayuchi brand ambassador. Elite Earthworks is a custom site management company that specializes in land clearing and grading, along with water correction and some utility work. Since the beginning, Takayuchi equipment is always the one I've wanted to work with, just because of the durability, power, and reliability of the machines. We have a 2150 and a new TL12R2 track loader to go along with a TB260 and the old TL250 track loader. Back in 2018 is when I started making content, because I wanted to share the variety of different jobs that I got with my machines on a day-to-day basis, and it kind of just took off from there. I'm a Takayuchi owner-operator, and I could not do my job without these machines. Keep up the great work and stay elite.
Very nice. Steve Williamson says, we were talking about Frisky Friday. He says, I've got an excuse. I've been on holiday. Yeah, you were on holiday with your wife. Sure. Yeah, I remember a time. Let's have a look. Jim Turner, what do you mean Frisky Friday? Frisky every day. That would explain a lot. Now, here's the thing. Got myself some iPod Pros. Why the hell didn't I have these ages ago? Here's a weird thing. Fred bought a pair of iPods while he was out in the States, because, American prices and stuff. I think I've had 3 different iPads. This is an iPad computer I'm talking to you on here. There's an iPhone there. I've got an Apple Watch just there. To my mind, the best product that Apple make are the AirPods. They are absolutely awesome. And it does make listening to things like podcasts and stuff so much. I'll tell you how much I love them. I actually save up phone calls, rather than somebody phones me and I'll ring them right back. I don't. I tend to save up phone calls and I put the AirPods in and I just do phone call after phone call after phone call, because they are such a pleasure to use. So, Steve, you're going to have fun with those. And why don't you christen them? Christen them properly by listening into our brand new Minexpo podcast. Speaking of Minexpo, I mentioned t'other day the fact that I'd bumped into Aaron Witt of BuildWit. There's the stickers. I finally dug them out of the suitcase. Dan Cullen, I'm not going to show you your address because I haven't written it down yet, but there's an envelope. There's your stickers. And there's the stamp that's going on it. That will be in the post for you today. If anybody else would like a BuildWit sticker, what have I got? I've got another 3. If anyone wants a BuildWit sticker, please let me know. Let's have a look. I love how they cancel out loud noises and keep your ears protected when you start speaking. They enhance speech. Yeah, they are an absolute joy. I think my only concern with them is if you're maybe walking along the street, something like that. Are you necessarily aware of all that's going on around you? Slight worry with that. Steve says, I met him in Vegas. Nice lad. Yeah, he is a nice lad. Well, I don't know if anybody else is aware of Aaron. Obviously, he's built a huge channel. When I first encountered him, and I mean, he called us years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, to borrow some of our footage and stuff like that. And I saw pictures of him. I was convinced he was like a big, strapping, 6'4" American football style guy. Tiny little fella. Tiny wee fella he is. Dan Cullen says, well, thank you very much, Mark. Not a problem at all. If anybody else would like a BuildWit sticker, there are 3 left. There you are, Peter McKenna. I watch Aaron all the time. He's on my watch list. As opposed to being on the TSA watch list, which is a whole other thing. I think I've got one more film to show you, and then I've got something to tell you about. No morning monologue today, but I have got something new to tell you about in a moment. So right back after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using DieselDye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Peter McKenna says, you have my address, Mark. Do I? I'll need to check. If I can't find it, Peter, I'll drop you a line on WhatsApp. You can send it to me and we'll... Yeah. Is your Apple device compatible with a USB attachment? I'd need to know more on that, Mick. I mean, Apple have basically gone over to USB-C now, or Lightning, that kind of cable there. So not entirely sure what you're at with that. Is that hospital or home, Peter? Lol, joke. Yeah, well, I'll send them to your home, Peter, because you'll be there at some point. I need some fuckwit stickers for the Muppets I'm working with on this side. See, that's what we need. We need fuckwit stickers. Speaking of which, I mentioned this yesterday, and I do think we need to bring it back at some point. If anybody's got any nominations for that Dick of the Week, do you know, even now I can't remember who that is. That Jeremy Hunt? Is that Jeremy Hunt? I don't know. He's a Tory politician that I basically took against for some reason. I don't know why it is. Okay, so cracking on. Yes, we're off to the Basque country. I've been there personally, but I don't think this show ever has. So how about we do that right now? And let's do it with those fine folks. You know, it's like everybody is a fine folk. Those fine folks at Capelco. I was trying to make sense of this. Alfred Mick says, got a great weekend coming. Saturday, my mate's daughter's wedding. Sunday, his dad's funeral. That when I read that first, it's like my wife's cousin's uncle is my father's brother's daughter or something. But I think I understand it now. Wow, Mick, you're going to be bust. Well, at least not 3 weddings and a funeral, indeed. Can I change that to Dicks of the Week? I can. I have the power. Not live, but I can do that. If you have multiple Dicks that you would like to nominate, then feel free. Can your Apple accept a ye old memory stick? No. No, it can't. Well, it can with an adapter. I do have an adapter for it, but no, it can't. I've fully switched over. That computer there that I'm talking to you on, that computer there that I'm looking at you on, well, hearing from you on, and everything else. No, I've completely converted now. Dan Cullen says, same as Samsung. I'm a Samsung only, not into Apple. Too many sign-ups and too many updates. I have this conversation with my in-laws on a regular basis. You go into the shop to buy yourself a new smartphone, and instead of saying, I'll have the best phone you have, you say, I'll have the second best phone you have. Apple's the best. It is the best. Let's have a look. I've moved from Samsung to iPhone. Best thing I did. Quite right, too. Quite right too. Mick says, nice to see that 360 Coelco putting a proper heap load as opposed to the UK influencers that are shouting for a struck capacity. Struck capacity. They should have their capacity struck, in my opinion. Dan says, love Coelco. When I spoke to them at Scott Plant, they can personalise the machine to your requirements, as it should be. As it should be. Dan Cullen says, I've got the S24 Plus and it will beat Apple anyway. It won't. Keep telling yourself that. Keep telling yourself that. Peter McKenna says, Mark, I'll send you a link to a video and you won't think Apple are the best after it. Bet I do. I'm a fanboy. Listen, I'm too far down the line. Apple. Apple. There's no curing me. Trust me, there is no going back for me. Let's have a look. I think I've got everyone there. So I think that pretty much wraps up the morning show. But I do have something else to tell you in just a moment. Let's have a look. Peter says, see, you like being controlled. Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely do. I absolutely do. Listen, I want all of my apps to have been passed through the Apple filter so that I don't get things that go tits up half an hour after I got them. Mick Norton Crapple, come on, people. You're better than this. You know better than this. Saying Samsung is better than Apple is like telling me that Shantway is better than Volvo. Behave yourselves. I'm not taking it. Dan Cullen. He's obsessed with the tits today, isn't he? Yes, I'm going to roll this. There is no morning monologue, but I'm going to round out the show because it kind of needs rounding out, and then I'll tell you about the other thing. Take his word. He uses technology more than any of us. It doesn't mean I understand it, though, Steve. Yeah. How many times that come up today? Well, thanks to you, Dan, it's come up quite a bit. I think you need a long, cold shower or something. My mum and dad told me what to do. I don't need a company to tell me what I can and can't do, download to my phone or computer. Fair enough. I don't care about things like that. And my parents told me my dad in particular, told me what to do all the time. Now, no morning monologue. I've already told you about the fact that we've got a new podcast format, new podcast style, new podcast presenters. Go have a listen. Go have a watch. It's over on YouTube right now. Don't need to bore you with that. But one of the other reasons there's not a morning monologue is let me wind back. about 10 years ago, I think it is 10 years ago, I wrote a Halloween story called The Girl in the Green Coat. And it was built around demolition. My friend William Sinclair up at Safe Dem in Scotland helped me write it. I say helped me write it. I came up with the idea, but I had to check a bunch of facts with him. He helped me with it, and therefore he was kind of the co-author. Fast forward 10 years, and we're now 3 and a bit weeks away from the next Halloween. And I thought, looking in the back of my mind, I thought maybe it was time to update it. Well, lo and behold, I had a message from Gary Muirhead Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday this week. And he said, "You doing anything for Halloween?" And I thought, that's it. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. So I sat down on Wednesday, and I sat down again yesterday. And the basic plan was to come up with an outline for a story. I already had it kicking around in my head, which is one of the reasons I didn't sleep particularly well the night before last. Had it kicking around in my head, but I thought what I'll do, I'll write it down in note form. I'll fire it up to Gary, who is going to be my co-author on this book. And I'll get it checked and everything else, and then I'll sit down and write it properly, and then I'll record it as a video audio thing. So that was the plan. Turns out the story was basically written in my head already. So I sat down day before yesterday, and the story just poured out. It's called The Gravedigger. It is a Halloween story, so it's horror-based with a little bit of sci-fi mixed in, but it's horror-based, and it's about an excavator with a mind of its own. Now, I've already told Gary this on WhatsApp, but I want to tell you because this is a bit of a quirk. So, as you all know, as you can probably see from the bookshelf behind me, I'm a huge fan of Stephen King. You can see all the books there. Many moons ago, Stephen King wrote a book about a haunted / possessed car that had a mind of its own and went on a murderous rampage. It was turned into a movie. The movie and the book were both called Christine. And the name of the car, the murderous car, was called Christine. So, sat down to write my new story, and I thought, well, given the fact that Gary is going to be my co-author on this, I will name the main character after Gary, which I did. But I needed a name for the machine. And I thought, I know, I will use the name Christine. There's a bit of an homage to Stephen King and, a book that I loved when I was a youngster. So that was it. The main character is called Gary, and the machine is called Christine. Told my wife that, and my wife pointed out that Gary Muirhead's wife is called Christine. That's weird, right? I mean, I actually knew that, but I have a lot of crap in my head, and I'd completely forgotten. So we've got a book coming out. It's I say book, it's a mini book. But the audio lasts for about half an hour. I was listening to it last night, and it sounds very, very good indeed, I have to say. Quite spooky. I've got to do some sound design on it. Well, I say I've got to get Fred to do some sound design on it. Basically to give it a bit more atmosphere, but it sounds fantastic. So let me show you. Before we get back to the chat. This is kind of the working front cover of the book. As you can see, it's called Gravedigger. I'll leave you to fill in the gaps on that. But yes, that is the working front cover. I'm not entirely convinced that will be the final front cover, but that is the book. So, all that being said, I need to tell you how this is going to work. So first of all, we are, as I say, we're already recording the audio version. So on the actual eve of Halloween, which is the 31st of October, which I think is a Thursday, we're going to do a one-off live show in which you can tune in and listen to that book. There isn't a video to go with it. It will just be an audio. I'll put something on the screen. I don't know what, but I'll put something on the screen. But you can listen to a half-hour haunted plant story. Unlike this show and everything else we do, once that show is over, it's going away. It's going away. It won't be on Spotify. It won't be on YouTube. It won't be on Facebook. I am not doing any of those things. It will be available for one night only. Unless. So the other part of the story is we're going to sell the book. We're going to sell it at £10 a pop. But here's the kicker. If you pre-order it, you will not only receive the book and the audio version of the book, you will get your name in the book. So I think we're planning to close it on about the 28th of October. So on the 28th of October, we'll draw a line in the sand. But anybody that's pre-ordered the book up until that point will be mentioned on the dedication page of the new book, Gravedigger. So any that are sold subsequently to that will receive a copy with your name in it. So, you know, I'm just trying to cover the cost of producing the damn thing, nothing more than that. I'm not expecting it to go to the Sunday Times bestseller list by any means, because frankly, it won't be that widely available. But that's the plan. So you will be able to pre-order. I'm working on that in the background at the moment. You'll be able to pre-order the book for £10. You will get the book in, you know, with your name in it. You'll get the audio. That audio will only be around in that format for one night. So after that one night, after Halloween this year, the only people that will have that audio will be anybody that's pre-ordered the book. So that's the plan. The book is all but complete. I think there's a little bit more work to do on it. As I say, sound design on the audio, because I want to make it as spooky as possible. With the girl in the green coat, I wrote and recorded that. And I know it was okay. It was early doors. It wasn't the fancy microphone I've got now. It was early doors, and it sounded okay, not great. But I gave it to Fred, and Fred put some audio filters on it, but he also put some sound design into it, sound of wind and stuff like that. And there's a bit at the end of the book, or more specifically at the end of the podcast, which is available on Spotify and other places, where the end of the story, he puts an echoey version of a little girl laughing. Now, bearing in mind, I wrote it and I recorded it. It's actually quite chilling. You get to that point, and it's like, oh, Christ, that is... Well, I'm hoping you can do the same again with this. So, the book and the audio will be available for pre-order. You'll be able to watch live, watch along, and actually get the gist of the story. It will be on the screen. I won't be here. I'll be here. I'll do a watch along with you guys, so you can join in and comment and everything else. But as soon as that show is over, that will go away. Mick says, my second wife, still an undertaker. She's got a voice to scare the fuck out of anyone. Let me know and I'll send you her email address. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, do you know, funnily enough, this time, partly because I don't have the time, really. I wrote the book, and then I've outsourced the recording of the audio. And the guy that's done it is American, and I have to say, it really does sound very, very good. Quality of the audio is absolutely top notch. Mick says, bet them teeth don't last long on the bucket. I think he's talking about, let me get to the right place. He's talking about those. No, it does look rather like they've seen better days, doesn't it? Let me take that away. Go back to the comments. What else have we got there? Dan Cullen says, send me the details, Mark. I will. I mean, in truth, I will let everybody know first off on WhatsApp. If you are a WhatsApp member, you'll be hearing about this first, and then I'll be telling everybody else about it after that. So saying, she's doing my mate's dad's funeral Sunday. All I bloody need. Yeah, I mean, I don't... The funeral's on a Sunday? The funerals happen on a Sunday? Do they? They never used to, did they? Oh, Mick says, did Stephen King also do the truck one? No, he didn't. Well, he didn't do... I think you would... There was I think it was Steven Spielberg's first feature film, which was called Duel, which was about a truck, somebody being pursued by a truck. That isn't Stephen King. However, Stephen King, just to show I know my shit, Stephen King a few years ago was actually hit by a pickup truck while he was out walking. He lives in Maine in America, in New England, and he was hit by a truck and he nearly died. I mean, it broke so many of his bones and really, what's the technical term? Fucked him right up. And he, rather than seeking revenge, he bought the truck that had hit him. I don't know what he did with it, but he bought the truck that hit him, and he turned it into a book, and the book is called Ride the Lightning, and that's about a truck. Mark, will I be able to pre-order more than one copy? You don't need to. It's going to be an ebook, so order it once, send it to everyone. Simple as that. We're not doing this as a fundraising thing by any means. It's buy it once, circulate it amongst your friends. Simple. The sound of tracking in the mist or the darkness. Yeah, that's it. That's quite a hard thing to convey, but I'm planning to do so. Because there's a line in The Girl in the Green Coat that I was particularly proud of. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's something like when everything's stripped away, a building is the colour of long buried bone. And if you think about it, when you look at a building generally, it's got wallpaper, it's got paint, it's got carpet and everything else. But you strip that all away and it's that beigey, nasty colour of human bone. There's something about the script, if in its right place. You know that sound you get, that screech of excavator tracks? In the right place, in the middle of the day, in the middle of a site, in the middle of a city, that screech just sounds perfectly okay. Perfectly okay. It's part of our audio landscape. If you were in the middle of nowhere and it was misty or it was dark and you heard that, I'm pretty sure that sound would freak you the fuck out. Mick Norton says, place an image of Miliband in the cab and it will frighten all the readers. Well, I'm looking to frighten all the readers, but I don't want a Miliband in it. Mick says, that was my next question. Thanks, Mick. Yep, there you are. You don't need to pre-order more than one copy. What do we got here? Chris Ford says, I'll risk a tenner. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'll keep you posted. Dan Cullen says, send me the details. I will. As I say, I'll be mentioning it on this show anyway. I will need to, you can put the date in your diary now. On 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 31st of October, we will be doing a live show, and it will be purely the book. A bit Jack and Ori-ish. I will do an intro and then I'll just basically play the audio and you can listen along. The sound of machines slewing round. Yeah, as I say, in their right place. It's the same as a creaky door. If you've got a creaky door in your house, you become attuned. Have you ever noticed that? You do become attuned. You move into a new house and it's, we've got a window upstairs that when it gets cooler at night, it kind of pops. It's not particularly loud, but if you're lying next to it, it's, first couple of nights I lived in this house frightened the bejesus out of me. Now it's part of everyday life. That window does that thing, when it gets cooler in the evening. If you're in the right place at the right time, all of these sounds sound absolutely fine, but out of place, like the sound of a machine slewing. We all know what that sounds like, but if you heard that in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, and you were on your own, Chris Ford, Killdozer, 1974 film directed by Jerry London, based on a book by Theodore Sturgeon. There's not enough people called Theodore Sturgeon in the world. Killdozer, I do remember that. I do remember that very well. There's another one as well. Does anyone remember the movie Vanishing Point? About a guy in a muscle car who basically is on the run from the law, and in the end, to stop him, they put a dozer in the road. And I think you're left to make up your own mind exactly what happens to him, but it looks like he's driven straight into the blade. I'm sure that was in the 70s as well. Don't have the details to hand, but so there we are. We've got a new podcast, a new format podcast. which you can listen to right now over on Spotify, or you can go follow the link, and I'll give you the link one more time just to be absolutely certain that you've got it. There you are. That's the Minexpo podcast. Different style, not me, which has got to be a benefit. Have a listen. I'm looking for your feedback. I'd like to know what you make of it. I like the idea of not making you work too hard. I listen to certain podcasts and I watch certain YouTube channels to learn things, and I will sit there of an evening and I'll put the laptop on my lap and I will focus on them intently. It's how do I do this with that, and does this, and I will do that. But there are others that there's a couple of guys who are in the tech space. Guy called, well, the two of them are called Colin and Samir, and they do a podcast from the States. And it's my go-to listen when I've got a long journey, because their podcasts are an hour and a half long, and they're talking about YouTube and podcasting and stuff like that. But they've got a very soothing voice, just sounds really good. That's kind of what I'm trying to replicate with this. Mike Wolf says, remember the start of the Italian Job when a Lamborghini, is that Miura, gets driven into the blade of a Caterpillar loader? Also, I don't remember that bit. I remember the end. Remember the end of, oh, hang on, does he get pushed off a cliff? Or is that on Her Majesty's Secret Service? Or Casino, I don't know. The cell in Pentonville where they'd done the hanging, the door only ever squeaked the day of the hanging. It was converted to a library years ago, but 20 years ago, it could still be made ready if needed. Is that right? That's an interesting one. That squeaky thing. I don't buy into all of the nonsense, but there's a couple of stories I've heard, and I've never been because I'm just uncomfortable doing it. But I know people that have been to what remains of Auschwitz. And they said that, according to them, and this might be an urban legend, but according to them, there are no birds. It's silent, which is weird. That is weird. And the other one, which I always refer to, is Loch Ness. I don't believe there is a wee beastie lurking at the depths of Loch Ness. But if you go to Loch Ness, go to the Urquhart Castle part of Loch Ness, and you kind of drop down from the road. It's too quiet and it's too cold. It's wrong. It's got a vibe, and it's not a good vibe. If you've ever experienced that vibe, you will know full well how a story about a monster in the depths could have begun. Jim Turner says, being a smoking thunder, I love the sounds you get in the dark at night. Your ears get very tuned in once the sun goes away and you're in the dark. You really do. And I, as somebody that spent quite a bit of time of my life and night fishing, and I love night fishing. I enjoy the fishing. I sleep fantastically well in the outdoors. Really, really do. I love eating outdoors. I love the whole experience. But I used to fish a lake with my dear departed mate, Bruce. And it was a relatively small lake, filled with carp, but relatively small lake. So even when it was very, very, very dark, you could kind of see the other bank. You could see outlines and shapes of trees and bushes. And I kid you not, the number of times my eyes convinced me that somebody was on the opposite bank watching us. And you kind of focus, and you look out the corner of your eye, and you think, "Is that a pup?" No, that's a tree. But absolutely convinced. What about getting the audience to send in their own scary stories if something's happened to them? Scare the shit out of them. Well, if you've got any of those, if you've got any scary stories, I love scary stories. I never did the Boy Scouts or the Boys Brigade or any of those things because, frankly, I didn't like the uniform. Didn't look cool. However, the idea of sitting around a campfire telling scary stories, that's right up my street, that is. It's why I love Stephen King. It is particularly that. That is correct. If you watch a bird flying over Treblinka, the bird flies around it. Been to those camps, and believe me, it's a very deep and strange feeling. I bet it is. I'm not equipped. You've seen whenever I've been talking about Dead Car and Red Car and stuff. I don't have the words. I don't have the emotional depth and everything else. What I will tell you is I went to New York for my 50th birthday about 1 million years ago. And we decided, after much consideration, we decided we were going to go to Ground Zero, the monument of Ground Zero. Glad I did it. Because obviously 9/11 was one of the pivotal moments of my life and anybody else that lived through it. But actually going there was eerie. I'm not talking, I felt like it was haunted. It felt like I shouldn't really be there. Like I was intruding on something that really had nothing to do with me. And the bit that kind of made that real, if anybody's been to Ground Zero, there is kind of a square monument. There's a hole in the ground and there's water in it. It's very peaceful. But around the top of the hole in the ground is a kind of a barrier. And on that barrier is etched the names of all the nearly 3,000 people that died on that fateful day. And we took a taxi to Ground Zero, and my wife and I walked up towards it. And, as I say, there's best part of 3,000 names all the way around this. The first name, and this is absolutely true, I know it sounds like I'm exaggerating for everything, for effect. The first name that we came to was a lady called Ann Nelson. My wife's maiden name is Nelson, and her mum is called Anne. Goes back to Gary and Christine with the book. Sometimes things happen. Chris Ford says, every time I open the post, it scares the shit out of me. I know that feeling. Operating plant and equipment at night is still not sufficiently covered in card scheme training standards. Is it not? Is there not a special set of rules for that? Wow, you live and learn. There was a sparrow that flew backwards for a... Well done. I actually thought that was going to be a thing. Thank you, Chris. You got that by me. I need to read these things before I put them on the screen. Everybody, that's an hour and nearly 10 minutes. I remember that too, Mark. And a woman's name also said her unborn child. So sad. Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that struck me as well, and, I hasten to add that I know who committed 9/11. I don't believe it was an inside job. We know who committed the 9/11 atrocities. But there was something very, very stark about seeing Arab-sounding names among the dead. Killing 3,000 people is an atrocity in itself. But being so mindless to do it to your own kind, just... Oh, Mick says, Mark, I only went to them because of the stories my nan told me of her family and what happened to them. Yeah, obviously, Mick obviously has some Jewish heritage. So my grandfather on my mum's side, it's terribly embarrassing. He wasn't, you always hear the stories that, they were one of the first into Auschwitz or something like that. I'm fairly sure he was part of a cleanup crew at Belsen. I think it was Belsen. I'm not entirely sure. And neither of my grandfathers ever talked about their exploits in the war, but there was a certain look came over my grandfather's face when you saw a concentration camp, and he said, well, I did, but it was empty, everything had gone. And I remember as a kid of maybe 12, 13 saying, what was it like? And this look on his face like, I can't even, there is There is nothing I can say to give you any feeling about that. And in some ways, not saying anything was worse because your head and your mind fills in the gaps. Jim Turner. It's a funny feeling when you see a ghost, not really fear, more a disbelief to start with, then the realization there's actually something there that shouldn't be. Have you seen a ghost, Jim? I've seen some weird stuff. Saw a nun vanish once. So that does sound a bit like the beginning of a joke. Very quickly. When I was growing up, living at home, our house faced a field, and then beyond the field was a stand of trees, big conker trees, and behind that there was an old hospital. And, the hospital was long since disused. As kids, we all convinced ourselves that it was haunted and so on down the line. And we used to get in through the window and walk into the corridor, and then somebody would have a panic attack and we'd all run away screaming. So, this hospital had a certain air about it just because it was a disused hospital, nothing more than that. But on one afternoon, I was sat there eating a sandwich with my mum. We were both looking out the window, minding our own business, a cup of tea or whatever. And there was a nun walking along the path between the stand of trees and the hospital. And she was one of those, I don't know my nuns, but she wasn't just your regular nun. She had, the winged things. If anybody knows nuns, they have the big flary hat. She had one of them on, all dressed in white with a big hat. It's not a hat, but you get the idea. And we saw her walk along, and then she vanished behind a tree. And she walked along and vanished behind another tree, and walked along, vanished behind another tree, walked along, vanished behind another tree. Gone. Gone. What is that about? Never did. I mean, there is, as an older person, there is every possibility that she walked along and then walked away, and the tree that she walked behind basically concealed her going away. There is every possibility, and that is probably what happened. But in that instance, both me and my mum were sat there like, what the fuck? Where did she go? Spooky. I'm surprised you're still here. Had to speak with a clinician. Peter, we've been hanging on for you to get back. We know things. We know where you're. We waited for you while you were having your X-ray yesterday. We waited for you to see your clinician today. My wife's seen a ghost. She said it put the willies up her. Lucky her. Is all I can say. Jim, I strongly believe animals sense more than we do. My hound will not walk past a local church graveyard. Oh, I love that. I love that. I do. I don't believe in the Loch Ness Monster. I don't believe in the abominable snowman. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in vampires, ghosties, ghoulies, and things that go bump in the night. But I really wish they were real. I really do. I quite like being scared. It's, hence my love of Stephen King. Used to love me a horror film as a kid. Not so much anymore. They've got silly. Silly. I grew up watching Frankenstein movies, which were pretty damn silly. But they've got. We now live in an age where horror movies have to have excess gore. Gore isn't scary. That's just ketchup. Where it's films that are really scary. The Exorcist, Jaws, both of those changed my life. Not necessarily for the better. Chris Rod says, in earlier life, I did some gamekeeping. Used to walk the woods and fields in the dead of night. Never bothered me. What was that scream? Yeah. Somebody said earlier, I don't know who it was, but I think it was Jim Turner, about being out at night. They always say that thing about people that are blind. They get an acute sense of hearing. I can absolutely vouch for that. Because when you're in the proper pitch black, I mean, if you're fishing, you're away from streetlights and everything else. So it is properly dark, and you do find you seem to hear absolutely everything. Peter McKenna says, I've slept in a graveyard and I believe in spectres. Okay. I wish I did. I'd love to see one. I mean, I'd love to see one of somebody that I knew. You know, my mum, my dad, my granddad, my mate. I'd love to see that. Mick Norton says, did you know ghosts stay safe in their cars by buckling their seat belts? Oh, Mick says, 3 girls stopped a bloke and asked if they could walk with him past the graveyard as they were scared. He said, yes, of course. It used to scare me when I was alive. Very good. Children are great at perceiving. This show has taken a very, very sharp left turn. Children are great at perceiving hallowed spirits. Yeah, because parents tell them there is no such thing. Children grow out of it. Well, some children do. Children up to about 10 years of age will have seen at least 10 spectral visions in that span of time. Really? Really? I don't think I ever did. As I say, my nun was a weird thing. But I don't, I think it was a perspective thing, nothing more than that. Jim Turner, we heard and smelt a ghost once. Hang the fuck on. You can smell ghosts? What do they smell like? Please don't say rotten corpse, because that would be awful. What does a ghost smell like? We heard and smelt a ghost once. The dog was with us that was scared of nothing. Wouldn't go up the stairs, and all the hairs on its back were stood straight up. Yeah, I've had that with a dog from time to time. I just thought the dog, being a boxer, was a fucking idiot. A vixen in full cry, enough to put the hairs on your neck on end. Yeah. One of the most horrifying sounds in the world. And I live at the top. We refer to it as kind of a banjo. So I'm at a cul-de-sac and the road comes up and then there's a circle or most of a circle at the top. So there's houses around the circle. And so cars come up and drive around. But we have a family of foxes that hang out outside our house of an evening on a regular basis. And that, when the vixen is calling her young, sounds like murders taking place. Saw 2 ghost kids at the side of the road. Ghost children are scary, aren't they? I've seen The Shining. If ghosts exist, they're the ones I'd be afraid of. Saw a man hanging in a massive old oak tree. I need to get out more. My daughter and a friend have seen exactly the same spirit on the landing in our house, as I have given a perfect description on all 3 occasions. Mick says, I had an uncle slept in a graveyard in Kent while night fishing. He was woken up by someone prodding him. He had bruise marks the next day till the day he died. Now, that's the truth. I saw them. Bruised by a ghost. There's a spot at the farm where you'd swear someone was walking up the yard and about to speak. Feels like someone you know. Then you look up and there's no one there. Weird feeling it is. Now, here's the thing, and this was not a vision. In not our last house, but the house before that, the dishwasher was at the end of the kitchen, and both myself and my wife, loading or unloading the dishwasher, heard somebody come in and turn around to speak to them to find nobody there. Now, I wasn't thinking ghost. I was thinking, Ruth's come into the room. What does she want? And turn around, there's nobody there. That's weird. Not quite the same as bruises all over your body and seeing people hanging from the tree, but see, this is why I've done the book. To be perfectly honest with you, my book seems fairly tame after what you all told me, but I hope you like it anyway. Peter McKenna says, look up the Lancashire Paranormal Society, funded by the University of Central Lancashire. Some of their findings are haunting. It seems appropriate that they would be. While we're talking about this, my hound's hackles are raised. That is weird. That is weird. Calm down, dog. You've nothing to fear apart from fear itself. And Vladimir Putin. And all of the people that I've upset in the demolition industry. who I sometimes feel are queuing at the door, waiting for their vengeance. That's a whole other story. Look, people, that's an hour and 20 minutes. Go and do your weekend, would you? I'll tell you more about the book. I'll tell you more about the podcast and stuff next week. I'll be back with a proper morning monologue on Monday next week. We've got a full week of shows. None of these half days and stuff that we had because of Las Vegas. We'll do it properly. No, that's not the one. I wanted that one. We used to go down to Annesley Hall at night as kids. That's a spooky place. Don't know it, but every town seems to have that place, doesn't it? Does seem to have that place. Dead don't hurt you, but the fucking living do. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Well, but on that, it's been on the Ghost Watch telly program. Don't watch it. Don't watch it. Mainly because of the people. I like the idea of the stories, but I don't particularly like the people that present it. Yes, so I mean, I always say at this point, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. If you encounter somebody that is passed on, be kind. They've had a rough day, and they probably won't do you any harm. The living, however, watch them buggers. They're all evil. Present company accepted. I'll see you Monday. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoyed your company. Take it easy.